Okay, great. Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Valley Regional School District School Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, January 25th, 2024. This meeting is taking place in the PVRS library and online via Facebook at facebook.com/BNC Television and www.pvrsdk12.org. I will call this meeting to order. It is 6:01, and we are also.
Is Michelle on?
Michelle's not on yet, so okay. We're expecting a member to come online through the Google Meet later, but she's not currently on there. So, all right. So, do we have any citizens' comments? We do not. All right, so we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes for December 14th, 2023.
I just saw one item on page 4. It's just slight. My name is misspelled.
Oh.
I just need an I instead of the Y. Thank you.
Now, on the vote, it's S-I?
It's spelled S-Y in the minutes, but it's actually spelled S-I.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I have it spelled?
It's spelled correctly.
Yeah.
On their other place.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's probably going to be like, I'll fix the executive session minutes because I'm sure it's the same name.
Rain has,
Yeah. Go ahead, Rain.
Rain has a comment.
Hi. So in section 4, the first section 4, because there's 2 section 4s for some reason. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. My pronouns are wrong.
Oh.
I go by they, them, not she, her.
Okay.
That's okay.
No, thank you.
And also, we can get rid of the confirm with email because I got the name confirmed.
Oh, okay. All right.
I have one.
Yep.
I have one. Page 2 at the top, item B, third line. He has been interviewing all 8th grade students and with the middle school team has been reaching out to families.
I also have on page 2, section C, the end of the, let me see, first paragraph. Oh, yes, the 4th line up, ultimately there was a unanimous vote to move to one campus. If you could add possibly before beginning on that line.
Oh, possibly beginning with.
Moving the 6th grade students. Yeah.
And that unanimous vote was of the district planning
Of the
committee,
district
not the
planning.
school. That's
Yes.
important to add there, Ann. So maybe on the 4th from the bottom line, ultimately,
Unanimous vote by the.
district planning committee. And it was not, actually, the vote was not to move to one campus. The vote was to recommend option 3. And I would strike everything other, in the sentence other than that. So ultimately, the district planning committee took a unanimous vote to recommend option 3. Lex, do you think I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then move all the rest.
I would strike the, option 3 was the option.
And just don't explain the option.
No, yeah. I would. And in the middle of the paragraph, there's more than 250 participants in this, to the second, I think it was more than 240. I think we were at 247, 248.
And in that next paragraph, 3rd line down, Mary spoke about the success of their firm. Is that a correct characterization? Was her success as an administrator?
Mary's not one to tout herself, but it is Mary has been successful in,
Put it on
Change it to her success.
her success in obtaining funding.
maybe on her prior experience,
Yeah.
that would,
Mm-hmm.
in successfully applying for.
Mm-hmm. And then item 9 on page 3, the date of the report, is that 10/1/23?
10-1. No, that would be, we would have been reviewing the 12-1. If it was
There's
enrollment
been-
update, that would be the 12/1/23.
But there were not changes since
No,
the
I think There
10/1.
were no changes since the 10/1/23 report, that should say.
But it was, if it was the 11, maybe then, we
It was
review that
the- It was
report
the
monthly.
December report,
Yeah.
but there hadn't
Yeah.
been any
Changes, okay.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Because it went up and then down again.
Yeah, I believe there were changes at the last, the enrollment. I believe there was,
I just
The
looked at it,
res-
said change from 10/1/23 0. I just looked at the total and I didn't look at. It is a little confusing. See what the next month says.
We
We
can
have
put the
some,
film
Karen,
back,
you
yeah.
also have some corrections? Yep.
Back on page 2, and paragraph C, in the second line, and the review the process to date. You could take out one of the thes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the next paragraph, the acronym FMP, I know what it stands for, but the first time it's used, it should be identified.
Put it up top.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Also, the thing that is there somewhere, but. Sometimes I have to listen to the tape.
so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 14th as amended.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Right, that and passes unanimously. All right, so moving on to our reports. We have a report from our student representatives, Lex and Rain.
Good evening, everyone. We have a bit of a longer report today, so we're going to try to move through this as quickly as possible. Here's our agenda. We're going to start off with Rain presenting recent student events that have occurred in the building. We're going to talk about some research we did into the ELA department just to get familiar with what each class is learning right now, so you can all be aware of what's going on in the building. And after that, we will be presenting research and interviews we have done with the student body about their opinion on the potential phone policy previously discussed.
Hi, my name is Rain Snow. This is my second time here, so give me a second. Okay, so events that have currently happened during this month, and since we last met, we have the donation drive done by the student council, the high school student council, the middle school theater, a night of one acts, and the dodgeball tournament. The donation drive was a huge success. There was around over 1,000 items that were donated altogether throughout the whole school, and of course the seniors won the lead of maybe 20 items.
Roughly 60.
Oh, 60 items. Okay, I can't remember facts. So now our next step as student council is to get ready to make the clothes available to students and teachers and set them up for distribution. A night of one acts. This happened on January 19th, so very recently. and it was for the middle school drama class to see the musical Wicked in Hartford, Connecticut on April 25th, and they raised $545 for their trip. And according to the people there, it was a really huge turnout. The middle school theater performed a merry interlude at Camelot by August M. and The Shadow of Peter Pan by John Biscillo. Dodgeball tournament. So this was, main organizer was Hugh Krugowski, which is a senior, I believe.
Senior class president.
Yeah, senior class president. I'm great at remembering people. So this was held on the 21st, which was a Sunday, and it was open to the whole public from elementary school to high school. They had 10 different teams, and Hugh hopes that he was able to get the younger kids excited for their possible future at Pioneer.
Okay, just to clarify before we move on to the ELA department, what we will be doing in the future with departments is we're going to be directly interviewing students to get their feelings about what they're learning and see any excitement or wants more from the curriculum. Due to circumstances that occurred, we were not able to do that for this department. When we circle back around to it, we will. So the high school team, which is led by Miss Brennan and Miss Ovitt, it's a mix of things right now, but the 9th grade, they're currently reading short stories, and Miss Ovitt is trying to introduce them to the world of test practice and standardized tests that they will be experiencing in high school and higher education. 10th grade is focusing on their short story unit right now, particularly focused on Edgar Allan Poe. 11th grade, what we have been reviewing is Greek mythology. We recently completed projects we spent roughly 3 weeks on, where we each researched deities, what they represented, and modern illusions. 12th grade, their main focus right now is preparing for college with an English class, so that includes college essays, learn how to properly apply, things like that. And AP Literature is reading Beloved by Toni Morrison. The 7th and 8th grade department, the 7th grade is currently reading The Outsiders, one of my favorite books. They are learning to cite sources, and they are going a lot into analyzing the characters. I've heard they've been using some online programs that lets them create comic strips of these characters' lives, which I find very interesting. And the 8th grade English is working on more in-depth analysis of short stories. So what we have prepared is I have interviewed 15 students, 7th grade through 12th grade, and come to them with a prompt which was, in the next couple months, the school committee will be voting on a phone policy. One of the possible policies would be a ban. Rain, would you like to explain your research?
So my research / experiment, I did, so me and another student did a sort of experiment with our phones where for a day we recorded what we did on our phones, and then we were given reflection questions, and the reflection questions consisted of how did it benefit us? Were there any negatives? Also, this was strictly done on students that on the busier side and hold more responsibilities, because if an outright ban of phones, this would be the people that it would affect the most.
And we will conclude that part of the presentation with comments we personally have that did not come up specifically in the interviews or the research. And to clarify, we would have loved to have been able to make this a discussion, but because of time constraints, we legally could not. So this will be a presentation, and we're very much looking forward to being able to discuss what we have brought in the future. So I listened back to all 15 interviews and categorized everything I heard from my peers. We'll begin with overall opinion / perspective. So what's their outright yes or no to, do they think there needs to be a change to the phone policy? concerns, which fell into safety, how students use their devices as academic tools, how they will think it will impact school culture, and how they think it will impact their overall lives. And it will end with suggestions and other comments students made that didn't fit into those categories. Okay, so 15 out of 15 students all opposed the idea of a ban, but this does not mean students are opposed to the idea of a policy change. Almost every single student I interviewed acknowledged and said there was inappropriate and unproductive use of phones in the building, and they do think there needs to be changes, and we'll cover what changes they were talking about in the suggestions. So, safety. And just to clarify, this isn't me making claims, this is me repeating what my peers have said to me. Students during family emergencies, school emergencies, or personal emergencies can benefit from having immediate and direct contact to their families, and this is most possible through a cell phone. A specific example I can give is one time my mother became very injured in her own home, and she was able to get to the hospital because she was able to contact my brother, who was in school at the time and had his phone on him, and was able to go get her and make sure she got to the hospital. This is a specific scenario a student came up with that they were fearful about, is in the awful event of a lockdown, a student may become isolated outside or somewhere where they cannot properly follow lockdown protocol and may be unable to call for help. A phone may be a possible tool in a situation such as that. And there are multiple students who have mental health conditions who use music to try to quell or control anxiety symptoms. And if you don't have a personal device on you, that is a very difficult thing to make happen. So this is essentially a long list of everything my peers told me they use their phones for. In science classes, phones are very often used for data collection, plant identification, and when we use microscopes in our classes, what we can do now is amazing. We can take pictures with our phones and add them to our presentations and research and slideshows. On Chromebooks, for obvious reasons, there needs to be strict restrictions on school devices on the internet. This also blocks lots and lots of sources that are helpful otherwise and do fall under an appropriate categories for student use. So it can be very difficult finding info or images for research projects, and students almost always use their phones for research projects. Calculations, where this specifically is important, is in science classes. In our math classes, I am sure that we're all supplied with enough calculators, but not every science class has a plethora of calculators present, and especially when you get into high school science, you can't do most of the work without a calculator. A majority of students use their phones for classwork and homework to get notifications, reminders, and keep themselves organized. We use phones for metronomes and tune-in band. Some students like to have multiple screens because this ties back into the issue of not being able to access all resources on a computer. They need to access a resource on their phone to look at that and take their notes on their computer. Students, it is the norm to create group chats when we have group projects so we can communicate outside of school. And if students are communicating outside of school and then can't go check what they were talking about when they get to school, that can become a bit of an issue. And this is not a universal thing, but some students have found themselves not able to access College Board, AP Classroom, and other college websites on their computers because we use our personal emails for those, as our emails are deactivated once we graduate and we will still need these websites. So it can affect student planning for college during school hours if we can't access these websites, which many cannot do on Chromebooks. And there's efficiency. The Chromebooks can take many minutes to start up and get to apps or websites we need, and what may take 10 minutes to reach on a Chromebook may take 30 seconds to reach on a phone. So it does take up class time when we're strictly using Chromebooks. And a large amount of students use music as a tool to sharpen their focus, and some people struggle outright to complete any work without having that auditory help. Okay, impact on school culture. Something students brought up is it doesn't happen often, but occasionally students become entirely caught up in all of their classes and find downtime for themselves. And students will, when they have no other classwork to do, have gone on their phones, and students were saying they felt it would take away their agency to control their own free time if their personal property was taken from them. This is back on school culture. We want a school culture where students can feel they can focus in class. If many students who use music to focus are deprived of that, that may have a slight shift in the school culture on how many students are able to focus. There were multiple comments about how it just seems demeaning and dehumanizing to be told you can't be trusted with your own property and have that seized from you. Many students expressed that they would be angry and very resentful if these tools they need in school were taken from them. And this goes outside of the interviews as well. There are already talks of how students plan to organize protests, or clubs that help organize school activities would cease to work if their tools were taken from them. And students were saying if they feel angry or untrusted at school, they don't think they can have a positive, safe, or productive place to learn if their just general feeling at school is anger, having their things taken from them at the start of every day. And these are students' concerns about how the ban would actually be effective. Students can and will resist and avoid confiscation. There's many ways I've heard from students on how they know they can avoid confiscation. And there's students' concerns about how confiscating and returning phones at the start and end of every day is going to impact their schedules. It's already a hassle to get kids onto the bus at the end of the day. There's usually middle schoolers lagging behind. We may leave a few minutes late. If there are hundreds of students all trying to retrieve their phones at once, what impact is that going to have on leaving the school on time, getting to clubs on time, being able to prepare for sports? I can say I do sports year round. During some seasons, I'll have 20 minutes to prepare for my sports. If I'm spending 10 minutes trying to get my phone, it's a bit of a rush to get all changed and all the way down to the track. Students are concerned that it could be a waste of school and town money. When we get to the suggestions, I'll spread a bit more light on it, but students believe there are other opportunities, and if this school is spending time and getting products to, one, take student phones, and two, keep them safe, as it would be a multi-tens of thousands dollar liability the school would be taken up, that could be a waste of town money if there are other options that could be effective. And again, the ineffectiveness of it ties back into the school culture and loss of tools. Students would have tools that the school would lose tools the school would need to replace to have effective modern learning, and the school culture, many believe it would have a severe negative impact on it. And this final bit before the suggestions and comments is how students use phones in modern life. A lot of students, especially upperclassmen, their lives are constantly changing throughout the day. Their schedules change, and after sports, it can be a struggle, I can say personally, to know how you're going to end up getting home. If students can't have to go to the office to call their parents every time a schedule changes, or the parents need to call call the school every time the schedule changed, that's not only a potential waste of our very talented office staff's time, but also ineffective. And once that staff checks out at the end of the day and student practices are ending at 5:30, that becomes an issue. And just, again, outside life does not stop during the school day. Many of us have jobs and need to be getting to places, and our lives are going to be changing while school is happening. If we aren't aware of what's going on or not able to contact our families or employers, it can create issues for the students. Okay, so suggestions. Many students, in light of seeing there are issues with inappropriate and unproductive phone use, do think there should be a level of confiscation. What the most popular suggestion was to give teachers agency to make those confiscations for temporary parts of the day. Specific things that were cited that we actually have had as a system in the past, which we haven't seen much after COVID, I'm not entirely sure why, is many teachers would have phone caddies in the classroom. And as you entered the classroom, the teachers would instruct you to put your phone in there, and if you're using them as a tool that day, you were allowed to hold on to them. And it was, at least from these students' perspectives, very effective in making sure that, one, students aren't using their phones inappropriately, and two, we have access to the tools they provide. So a specific comment I found particularly interesting is phones are tools in modern life, and you cannot function with a job and many other things in the US at least, without having a phone. And school is meant to be an environment of learning and preparing us for the real world. If we are deprived of these tools, we don't have the opportunity to learn how to use them in school, and the school doesn't offer any opportunities, like in teaching wise, to know how to use them. It sabotages the students when they go out into the real world. And there was one student I interviewed who did not have a phone himself, and what he told me is he felt in modern education, his learning has suffered from not having a phone due to the tools that he's been deprived of not having it. And he also advocated, for the sake of his classmates, to not ban them. All right. This is your turn.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. So, my turn. I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Okay. So, again, my part of this was research/experiment that I have done. First, we'd start with the details, the reflection questions / the essential question. The difference between neurodivergent and neurotypical students and their needs. Most ways, a phone was used in the day, at least for these students, and what students will a ban on phones really affect. So, details. For this experiment, it was from 7:30 a.m., which was around the time that both me and the other student got to school, and to 2:30 p.m. at the end of the day, which would realistically be the start of when the phones were taken and then the end of where the phones were given back. So we logged every time a phone was used, whether that be for texting a friend, something that was unproductive, or something that was productive, it was all logged. And this was specifically done with one neurodivergent student and one neurotypical student. And again, like I mentioned before, it was done on extremely busy students, responsible students. Reflection questions. How does having a phone affect the person? Do they really need their phone for this? What was the difference between using their phone versus their Chromebook? Essential question. Was having a phone beneficial? What is the point of this? Oh,
sorry.
What is the point of this? The point of this experiment was to show that phones are modern everyday tools, and we have to learn to navigate and manage them. We have to learn the responsibility of owning a phone. It is a responsibility that we must figure out, and that I believe, or not I believe, but most people believe that a school should teach you how to properly and educate you on how to properly use. Okay. Now you can move on to the next slide.
Next slide.
Okay, definition. So, neurodivergent. A person whose neurological functioning system works differently from the typical or average person. Neurotypical. A person with the average or typical neurological functioning system. People that are neurodivergent, examples would be ADHD, anxiety, autism, depression. They have specific accommodations that they need to make everyday life and a school day easier. Neurotypical people do not always need said accommodations, but they do use their phones to make their lives easier. Yeah. So we have what I did as a neurodivergent student and what the neurotypical student did the most throughout the day. So the neurotypical student used their phone a lot for aiding in classwork, responding to emails, and texting others. And texting others fell under friends, organizers for prom, and eventually calling somebody for a venue for prom. Neurodivergent student, I used it for aiding my classwork, responding to messages and emails, texting my mother, and I listened to music throughout the most of the day. And my reasoning for that is because I need to stay awake, and two, it makes it very much, it makes it more easy. It makes it easier. Oh my God, I can't speak English. It makes it easier to focus throughout the day. So, are these possible on a Chromebook? These things are possible on a Chromebook. However, the drawbacks of a Chromebook is that it can be slow and quite unproductive. Again, wasting several minutes of our valuable class time when we could have used a phone to quickly do such thing we were looking to do. Students, reasons why the phone is used is because students have chosen the more productive and effective route rather than the unproductive and inefficient route with the supplies given to the students. Essential question, was having a phone beneficial? It was found in this experiment that it was beneficial and it was more effective and easy to use a phone rather than a slow and restricted resource. So how does having a phone affect a person? Is their phone really needed for this? And what is the difference between their phone and the Chromebook? So phones had a positive effect on these students when it was used effectively and wisely. Negatively, one can get distracted by push notifications. However, as technology advances, you can hide these push notifications, limiting how distracting a phone can be. Second question. Phones were used not necessarily, when the phones were used, it wasn't always necessarily needed. But however, the phone was the more productive and better use of time route, again, than rather the Chromebook. And leading to the second question, the difference between phones and the Chromebook is that personal phones can access the internet here without problems. It's unrestricted, and they're able to access resources without delay. Chromebooks, again, tend to be on the slower side and take a while to boot up, and sometimes they even hinder classwork. It can take like 3-4 minutes sometimes to load just a single tab when you first turn on your Chromebook, and it can get rather annoying and unproductive when you have a very limited amount of time in that class, especially if a teacher says that they're only giving you this class period to work on something and you want to make efficient use of that time to not have homework or something.
Okay, this is quick. We can move through this quickly. First off, we want to say our official opinion as the student representatives that were elected is that we agree with the vast majority of the points made by the students, and can back up many of the claims they made with examples from our personal lives and what we've witnessed from our peers. This is something I was thinking about a lot, is I know the school values restorative justice. I know there's staff training earlier, and there was approval for an organization that we are both part of that has high schoolers and teachers meet with the middle school to have restorative justice circles, build community, and try to find ways where students can learn from their mistakes and misactions instead of purely a punitive system. If the response to the very valid issues that Ms. Kinsella informed me of that are going on with phones in the school is to ban them and not to teach students to use these properly and teach them how to digest and understand the awful things going on, the school can, I don't think it would be fair for them to make the claim that their goal is restorative justice. It would be very opposite of anything restorative. It would just teach, it would prove to the students that the school isn't putting the effort to teach them how to deal with the things they're going through. It just stops it from occurring specifically during school hours. We support the idea of an intermediate policy where teachers would have more agency to confiscate student phones. And problems with social media are going to persist whether students have phones in the building or not. Students are still going to have mental health issues. There's still going to be conflict. And banning phones and not teaching the students how to use these because it's still part of their lives won't solve the problem.
Sorry. Stuck the mic in front of me. I had my idea and I lost it. My mind went blank.
And I just had, it was about the resource you gave us about these issues with social media. And I'll be entirely honest, I have not had time to go in depth through it. I plan to read it and hopefully have time to annotate it, but in light of midterms, I have not really had free time at all. But I read My Best Way, page 1 through 13, and read past that, which I remember you specifically requested we read 1 through 13 as that held the important information. Page 15 specifically talks about what policymakers can do to confront these problems. And the closest thing mentioned to a ban is put in age limits on students using social media. So in my opinion, that applies to social media, not phones in their entirety. And it did suggest directly that in schools, students are taught appropriate online use and how to use phones correctly and safely. So I'm thinking if there's going to be a claim for a policy that's based on a source, it's very important we include all claims and points made in that source. So that is the presentation we've prepared today. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry it took so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to add a little comment here. The policy subcommittee will be discussing this on Monday at their meeting. I plan to join them, and cell phone policies will also be. I think we're planning the agenda that'll be on the February 15th agenda as well. So we'll be able to have more of a discussion and responses and a more meaningful discussion. Yes.
Is it appropriate to ask a few questions?
So this cell phone policy was not an agenda item, so unfortunately we aren't able
No, just
to
about their
have a discussion.
methodology? No?
Not really. It's a, it's,
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, this was informational, and it was,
it could certainly come up at when it's an item.
yes,
It could come back.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
so save that question and for next time. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So for the chair's report, our financial report will be given.
We could just have
will be-
I could
Yeah.
hand my superintendent's report over to Jordan.
Okay.
That's an easy
Sure.
I would
Okay.
just do it like that.
And then, yeah, the other, I'd like to move other business up to, before we handle the rest of the business, since we have someone online, Cami Lamica, has some comments that will add to the other business, so.
So I'm going to pass on a report tonight in the interest of time and because we have this unanticipated business item. Should I bring Cami up on the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, hang on one sec, Cami.
I know you can't see much of anyone, but you can only see me,
Close it down for a sec.
Cami, but we're going to bring you up onto the big screen so everybody can see you.
And hear you most.
And here, yeah.
I can't see the bottom of my thing, hang on. How come I can't see Cami?
I don't know. I don't see you.
Am I not in the right meeting? Oh, you know what? I can't, the meeting disappeared from my head.
Thought yeah, okay.
Are you able to get on airtime or
I don't think
can you invite me to the meeting?
yeah.
While we're waiting on that, could we make the student presentation available?
Yes,
To us?
that's on my list.
Okay, thank you.
All of the slides tonight will go into the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
So edit it. And if not, we'll just do her via audio. All you have to do is, okay. It somehow disappeared from my calendar.
But if I send you the link,
She's trying to do that right now. Yeah, just go there. And add me as a guest.
Oh, okay.
I'll do the link if it's.
So it says you're,
You sent me a link. Okay, here we go.
apologies for the technical difficulties.
Okay, so the, should I try again? Okay, thank you, apologies, thank you for your patience. So the governor, Governor Healy, put out what are called the cherry sheets today. That's the governor's initial budget numbers. So Jordan will be sharing information about what those numbers look like, and Cami Lamica, our fiscal overseer, held a meeting today with Jordan and me to review those numbers, and she felt it would be important for the school committee and the community to hear her thoughts about what the initial numbers look like. Cami, I think you might be muted.
No, I think we, is your microphone?
Yeah, I'm on.
Here, let me.
Cami, will you try saying something again?
Sure.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, I wanted to make sure if Jordan was going to speak about what he saw first in the budget, and then I can follow up.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Cami. I would love to talk. So it's been very quiet here. Thank you for the opportunity. So as Patricia introduced, the governor had the State of the Commonwealth presentation, and then the cherry sheets were released today. So all in all, good news and very close to what we projected. And I sent a little message out to the budget subcommittee, and the reason it was so close to what we projected is we were relying on the same information as the governor. So we did a good job of using the publicly available resources, like the numbers we reported on the end of the year report for our regional transportation, and getting luckily the transportation reimbursement rate corrected at 80%, and assuming $30 per student. So to go to the overall numbers, as I mentioned, I've prepared the spreadsheet that's shown up on the screen. So the Chapter 70 number that we were using for our budget projections was $1,000 higher, so pretty inconsequential amount. Actually, the charter tuition number on the second line was quite a bit lower than what the governor released. That may change in future iterations as the legislation evolves and goes to the legislative branch, so we'll see. So I was a little more conservative than that estimate. Again, the regional transportation amount, that's just 80% of what we reported on the end of the year report. So again, relying on publicly available information and the information we submitted. School choice receiving, that's based on the October 1st SIMS numbers. So the number I was looking at in the budget is the same number that was put in there on the cherry sheet. So, as you can see with the total estimated receipts, what the governor was actually, what the governor came out with in the budget was, very similar to what we were relying on. And the reason I say that's good news is it's not going to lead to any large impactful changes in our budget. So, long story short, we're in a good spot. Actually, this made me much more hopeful because, there's a lot of talk about with the mid-year cuts that possibly the budget would look really bad. And for us, at least, how we were budgeting, it looks almost identical to what we were thinking, which is, a combination of some good luck and using our publicly available resources as we develop the budget. So the good thing is we weren't guessing. We were using the resources at our disposal. And in terms of the, charges, although, again, very similar in terms of what the governor put in her budget and what we were estimating, because, again, we were going off the October 1st information. But I think a really nice story in those estimated charges is the fact that we have less money going out to choice and charter, which I think we can all agree is a good thing because more students are remaining in the district rather than choosing to be educated elsewhere. So that's a positive story. But, this late in the budgeting season, having really similar numbers to what's reported is really nice. It's not super exciting, but it's it shows that, we kind of have a steady hand and we had a pretty good idea where we were going to be at. And I think it's important to note, at least last year and in past budgets, sometimes numbers get better as we move through the budget cycle. There's a possibility that some of these areas, like the last 2 years at least, another $30 has been added to the Chapter 70 per student. So that's one aspect that could improve. And I think, as people remember from last year, regional transportation actually went up in the different iterations. The governor had recommended 80% in her initial budget last year, and that eventually went up to 90%. And I think the last thing I'll mention, because I want to say I do love talking, but give Cammie an opportunity for analysis as well, is the rural aid. I thought that was really positive that it remained at $15 million in the governor's budget because, as I'm sure many people remember, it was $5 million, then $6.5 million, and came out at $6.5 million last year, and now the governor is keeping it at $15 million. I thought of all the things that could get cut, rural aid, it's a year-to-year appropriation. There's no guarantee, and to see it at $15 million in the governor's budget, I think is a really positive sign, because that's another one that there's been a lot of advocacy, and I could see that going up in the future. But the overall story is we're in good shape, and I do think that there's potential room for improvement. But even if there's no improvement, we're absolutely fine. This is how we were budgeting anyways. So good news. But I'm sure Cammie has very insightful thoughts as well.
So I did meet with the superintendent and Jordan earlier today to review the budget. I just wanted to also caution the committee that this is the first glance of one of the many budget versions that's coming from the state. The legislators will develop their versions over the next few months, and they'll have more information about the state's financial situation, and the budgets will change. Right now, the district is benefiting from having a fiscal overseer and it provides two sets of eyes on the district's finances. You have Jordan and you have me looking at it. Right now, Jordan and I have planned in our financial planning to have reserves on hand to manage the ups and downs the district may encounter over multiple years. That's part of a good financial plan. And lastly, a strong, stable financial management is exactly what DESI is expecting from the district's administration and committee. And that's exactly what you've got in place right now to weather some of these budget pieces that may go up or down over the next few months. Jordan and I and Patricia have worked very hard to stabilize and make a solid financial plan so there are not big swings for the district. So right now, it's steady as we go. Keep an eye on the budgets on the state level. We've anticipated some of these things, and we'll see where we land.
Thank you, Cammie.
Thank you, Cammie.
Are there any questions from the committee? No, I don't see any.
Thank you so much, Cammie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our next item of business. Taffy, Bassett Fox, please come to. Welcome.
Taffy, thank you for making time in the evening. As you know, school committee and community, Taffy Bassett Fox is the new executive assistant to the superintendent and the school committee, assistant treasurer, all around fantastic addition to the district. And because she is your executive assistant, we thought it would be important for you to have the chance to meet her in person. And Taffy, we're so glad that you're here. And the school committee has your resume, and this will be part of the online packet. Will you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your experience?
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So like Patricia said, you have my resume in the packet. I've been here for, almost 3 weeks, I think. I think Patricia and I are working really well together. I'm really liking Pioneer. Everybody seems so friendly. So I've been in education since getting out of college in many different, scenarios, supportive, administrative levels in the private sector. But like I said in my interview, supporting is where I am happiest. So I just finished a very, very long job. I was there for 18 years, and I am so happy for this change, and I'm really happy to be a Pioneer.
Great. Thank you. I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
So did you always want to be involved with education, or how did that come about?
Both of my parents were educators because they're both retired, one in private school and one in public. So it was kind of just always there. And education was always a huge part of my upbringing. That was important. So it was like my first job out of college, and then I was like, I like this. I like kids. It's good.
Well, we're very lucky to have you. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, Taffy.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that you might want to put some faces to names. Would that be helpful?
Very helpful. I know
Sure.
your names. We've
Sure.
been emailing.
Sure. Would you like to start?
Renee Kier.
Hi, Renee.
Met the other day.
I am Gretchen Calton. I'm a Bernardston resident, grandmother of 2 in the Bernardston school system. Nice to meet you and welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Karen O'Neill.
Hi, Karen.
Michelle Geruso. I have a question. You've been pretty much on the financial side, it looks like, for the past few years. you're not going to be doing that much in this present position as an accounts manager or or payroll, I guess. Just if you could elaborate a little bit on that. Looks like you're very strong in finances, and that's what you've been doing.
Yeah, I have been doing that for, I believe, off the top of my head, I think 5 years. An opportunity opened where I was, and I was like, okay, and we'll give this a shot and see how it goes. I ended up liking it, but I'm glad to be back in a supportive role.
Okay, thank you.
And if I may, from my perspective, it's so great to have someone with that experience, who's also, as we discussed, serving in the role as the assistant treasurer. So I think it's going to be a huge, because in the kind of central office team, we're all kind of doing a lot of different stuff, and having an all-arounder like Taffy, I think, will definitely benefit our team. And she has an amazing dog calendar if anyone wants to see cute dogs.
Ooh, a dog calendar? I want to see that.
I'm Raina Dastu. I'm a resident of Northfield and the chair, obviously. We've been emailing, so
Yes,
it's
we
nice to
have.
put a face to the name. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming tonight, taking the time to come in the evening. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Ann Harding, and I'm the recording secretary. I live in Turners Falls, but I used to live in Bernardston, and I have grandchildren in Northfield Elementary Preschool and 2 of them in 5th grade in Bernardston. So I'm at those schools every day.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, Taffy.
Hi.
I live in Bernardston, and I have 2 girls at VES. It's so nice to see you here.
Good to see you again.
Hi, Taffy. I'm Sylvia Cummings. I met you the other night.
Hi, Sylvia.
I have a son in the district that goes to Pioneer. I'm a town, I actually belong to Northfield. I'm from Northfield, so yes. Welcome.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi.
Since we're all sharing that we have kids in the district, I have kids at Bernardston. I'm from Bernardston.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Please do. I'm sorry.
I was like, okay. Rain Snow. I am a student here, obviously. I'm a student representative. I'm in 11th grade. I do this. I'm a student representative. I'm also in the student council, restorative justice, National Honor Society member, and a teacher assistant for the 7th grade science class.
You are busy.
I am very busy. I also do track.
I'm the other student representative. I'm Lexing. I also do all those things Rain was mentioning. We have a few more clubs that we're also part of. Lots of work. But pleasure to meet you also. It's been a nice exchange in emails recently.
Did I say my name?
You did.
You did. You did. And great presentation, by the way. It's very thorough. It's impressive. You're all set?
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you.
All right. So our new administrator entry plans.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Evening.
We're going to introduce ourselves. We're going to start by introducing ourselves, but I also wanted to say, as we're presenting, we look forward to any questions that you have, but if you could make note of them and hold them for the end, it would be fantastic. I'm Kristen Schreiber. I'm the principal over at Northfield Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Nancy Parlaklash. I'm the Student Services Director.
I'm Kate Mesmer. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning.
And I'm Matthew Sullivan. I'm the principal here at Pioneer.
All right, I get to be the bookends, so I get to start us and end us. So I'm going to talk about our entry plan goals. Our entry plan goals, the goals of this particular project was for us to establish personal and professional connections with our staff, students, families, administrative colleagues, and the broader community. It was to learn about the history, practices, and resources of our schools and the district, and how they affect their effect on how the organization currently functions and how it may function in the future. It was also to establish ourselves as an interested learner, listener, and supportive and effective leader, and to identify immediate priorities and determine focus areas for longer-term goals. So in your packets and in our original entry plans, we had our timeline, which started back in July when we all began. And it started off with us trying to just determine what were some topics that we wanted to review. And all of these things are noted in the appendices at the end of your report. We also wanted to identify the people and groups that we wanted to meet with. We wanted to identify questions to use when we were gathering our data, and to identify documents and data that we needed to review. And following that, and kind of simultaneously, we began generating that data and looking at all of our documents. And we started beginning to look at interviews and meet in small groups. We conducted classroom and program observations and reviewed documents and data, and that was through November. And then through that whole process, and then through December, we began analyzing all of our data, identifying themes and patterns as we all met together to discuss what we had been learning, and to identify implications and thinking about recommendations that we wanted to make. And then in January, we are here right now to share our findings and our implications. So throughout this entire process, we did meet regularly with ourselves as a group, but also with the superintendent. And it became very apparent early on when we were seeing some of the same themes emerge regarding strengths and areas for growth. And we decided that it would be more productive for us to share those observations together regarding the strengths, the areas for growth, and as well as our beliefs around teaching and learning.
Okay, so I'm going to
Nancy, bring it super close to you.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to review our collective district strengths that we found. So we found as a group that student insights were strong about their school experience, their dedicated adults work in the buildings, they're student-centered, they know their students well. There's a strong professional relationships among faculty and staff, a sense that the schools in the district are moving in a positive direction. There's a resourceful approach to solving problems, a shared commitment to integrating environmental education. There's small class sizes, commitment to the arts, strong support among community members for the schools, and Northfield Community Resources have a small town vibe, Dickinson Memorial Library, the Senior Center, and the Northfield Recreation Commission.
Hello, and I'm going to talk a little bit about potential district-wide areas for growth. The first one, near and dear to my heart, of course, is the curriculum. It's important that we review and update at all grade levels and in all subject areas curriculum. And there's been I've had some really great conversations with both Patricia and with Jordan about the potential for what we can do going forward in a thoughtful and systematic way, in the best way to support our staff and our students as we go forward in that. We do need to create a multi-year professional development program, particularly around any new curriculum that we might have, and even more specifically around instructional practices to help support the teaching of that curriculum. Teachers definitely need more collaborative time, and trying to identify structures that would allow that to happen, along with professional development in terms of the best way to use that time that's going to be offered for collaboration, which is incredibly precious. We need to look at differentiated instruction for our students. And again, that's another area that would require a significant amount of professional development, response to integration. So we need to have, intervention. We need to have a new policy or a new program, and we're going to spend a lot of time working together, particularly with the Director of Student Services, with Nancy, and with the building principals to look at the best way to do that. The next one is interesting. The building maintenance and development. I have to admit that I was so caught up in the facilities master plan process that I realized that a lot of that work is being done by significant numbers across the schools and across the communities. So it's something that we are definitely aware of and moving forward on. So that's a really positive thing. We need to better support the professional culture in the schools, particularly among the staff, and all of the work that needs to be done for the best outcomes for students. We really do need to support staff to make that happen. There are some challenges that we've all observed around student behavior, and some of that is connected to cell phone use for sure. And again, I always say this, they have incredible power at their disposal all the time. And we were not particularly, and when I say we, I mean adults, we're not particularly reflective about what that might mean to a 12-year-old, right? To a 17-year-old. It is an extraordinary tool, and you are absolutely not wrong about that. But it's also, I have a dear friend who said, it's not really so much about what you're doing online. That's not the issue. The issue is what you're not doing, right? So what could you be doing instead of being online is a really, really important question to ask. And I think all of us have to ask ourselves that, not just students, right? They have grown, their whole lives are connected to that in ways that ours were not. So we need to kind of honor that and think about that as we go forward. And we've also, especially during COVID, told them, this is a tool you need to use to do that. So it's, we have to be really, really thoughtful about all this, because there are incredible complications with the use of devices all the time for students. It's such a long conversation, I can't even possibly go there, but it's also something that I feel very strongly about, because I feel like we're doing everything in our power as a society to militate against coherent thought, right? Coherent thought is the only way we're going to move forward as a society, and if we keep fracturing that every second of the day, it's going to be problematic for just about everyone. And we have such amazing students and so many gifts, and I don't want to see all of that go simply because there's a distraction that is possibly seen as something positive, but potentially is not. So we need to really be thoughtful about how we do this. The environmental education program, and I work really closely with Jordan Cummings, who's our new environmental educating program coordinator, and that's exciting. There's all kinds of things that are happening there. Enrichment opportunities, we would like to increase those for students both during and after school. And of course, home communication, whether it's between the school and the home or between homes and schools, to make those channels of communication as open and clean as possible is really what we'd like to see happen. I think I missed anything.
Thank you, Kate. While a lot of this work was collaborative, the priority implications of this are going to be individualized based on programs or schools. We did find a lot of commonality in what we were investigating. A lot of areas had a lot of overlap, but how these areas for growth or areas of strength manifest themselves is going to be slightly different based upon which location this is happening in, and also within the purview of our specific positions. Each one of us came up with a fairly long series of implications and things that need to move forward. These are all going to be done at different paces. Some of these are more long-term goals, things that are going to be, seen after like 2-3 years. Some of them are more immediate and things that are going to be addressed, in the present tense. And that's what we would like to kind of highlight today, are some of the immediate priority implications of our work and of what we've discovered. So I'll hand it back to Kate, who's going to lead off with that.
Sorry about that. So in among the list of the areas of growth and the implications that for teaching and learning, I identified 3 in particular that need to move forward fairly quickly. The first is identifying, implementing a new elementary math curriculum. And because of the way that curriculum is designed these days, that very easily could spill into incorporating the work that needs to happen at the secondary level too, just because of the way curriculums are designed. Developing the response to intervention model, as I mentioned earlier, working with Nancy and all of the principals, particularly the elementary principals. And then exploring potential grant opportunities for curriculum materials and professional development support. And there's already a few that I've identified that we're going forward with. One of them is the Vermont Learning Excursion, which will take place in April. And that is a grant-funded program where there are teachers, administrators, and students, present company included, who will be going to Vermont for 3 days. Well, actually, it's 4 days, April 9th through 12th. To take a really close look at schools who are doing some innovative things around curriculum and assessment. So that's a really great opportunity for the district. There is also the Innovation Pathways Grant, which we're working very closely with Scott Frenier, who's the Dean of Students, and with the environmental educator and with our AP Environmental Science teacher. And that's, again, a really wonderful opportunity for students going forward that could be multiple years. There are other grants that I've identified that I'm working with both Jordan and with the superintendent to make sure that it's the best time to apply for those things and we can use those funds wisely and well given the limited time that we have available, because I don't want to hand so much to teachers that they wouldn't be able to integrate those things in a successful way. So these are all things that we're very cognizant of.
Okay. Thank you. So before I start talking about my implications, I wanted to share that we got some good news from the Department of Education in terms of special education. They rate districts in certain areas of special education, and then they make a determination if you're meeting compliance in those areas. And Pioneer met the requirements and at 94%. So there are two, there's special ed non-compliance, they look at that. We've been in compliance, or we've responded to complaints appropriately and they've been resolved satisfactorily. And they also conduct little mini audits for early childhood timelines or for secondary transition, and making sure that we're in compliance with all of those areas. So the district should feel really proud. This was not my work, this was my predecessor's work, but it should feel good. If you do not meet requirements, then Bessie comes in and it becomes a whole thing that you have to focus on. So that's a really good thing for Pioneer. So in my, through this process, the big picture thing that I came away with was the need to shore up the systems that we have in place to support general education. So the things that Kate was talking about, differentiated instruction and response to intervention, those are things for general ed kids. That's something for all students. Reading instruction, those kinds of things we find benefit all kids, and it also can lower the number of students that require special education. So it's looking at a continuum of support where the primary support is in general ed with with intervention where kids can be pulled out, and then special ed as the last resort. So that's what I'm thinking about at Pioneer, the work I want to accomplish. My immediate goals that I hope to attend to this year, the first one is the Massachusetts new IEP, and I don't know if people are familiar with it. I haven't promoted it yet. I am going to, but they have reformatted the IEP. The regulations and the laws are the same, but the document itself is different. And it's, they want very much to have more of student voice and parent voice in the IEP process. So this year, because it looks different, it's going to make teachers nervous, special ed teachers that are going to have to use these new forms and run meetings. We're going to do some trainings to get people familiar with the documents and a little more comfortable. And I'm hoping to, well, I plan to send out a survey to families to see if there's interest from parents who might want to come in and just take a look at the document and talk about it. My other goal is, through this process, I've noticed that in our district we have a lot of one-to-one instructional assistants for a lot of students. And I have an opinion about that. I think that it's not in students' best interests always to have someone right with them all the time. It can teach some dependency on the part of students. It can make students accustomed to one adult's manner and way of responding where they're not able to generalize to other different people. So for these students, I want them, I'm working with the special ed folks to develop independence goals. So there are some students that need one-to-one supervision, and that's, you know, just the nature of some students' disabilities. However, it can't be, in my opinion, that there aren't times in their day when they can't be independent, and shouldn't we be at least striving, trying to get them there? We may not be successful as quickly as we'd like, but I at least want to move in that direction. So, you know, over time, I'm hoping that it will reduce the need for that high-level number of adults with one-to-one with kids. So those are my two immediate things. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So my priority implications, a topic that we haven't really discussed much today, cell phones. Everyone's aching to explore this topic more at this point. The key part of this is, again, if you read the point here, collaboration on creation of a new policy. We're not at a policy right now. We're going to collaborate, work together, try to get, cast a wide net, get a lot of voices heard. And like any good process, hopefully this comes up with something that few people will find to be absolutely perfect, but most people will find to be an improvement and is something that we could all live with and be happy with. I think that when you look at, it's been talked about a lot, so I don't need to rehash everything about cell phones. It's an issue. And, with any new technology, and not to say that cell phones are new, they've been around for a while at this point. But if you look at, any sort of innovation, it requires new rules and laws to govern that innovation. The guy that made stop signs didn't have much of a marketplace until somebody invented the car. So, I mean, there's a aching need right now for a new policy governing phones. What that policy looks like, we're not there yet. There's a range of possibilities, and we're going to take into account the voices of all stakeholders, faculty, families, students, in the community. So that's going to be an area of focus for us for the remainder of this year. A second area of focus is going to be completing the process of introducing the innovation pathway for environmental science into our curriculum and into what we do, and also continue exploring the possibility of expansion of this sort of program into other subject areas. The environmental pathway, environmental science is a great place for us to start. We already have some infrastructure built into place. We already offer advanced placement environmental science, which is a very popular course at Pioneer. We also have Jordan Cummings on staff, who's an invaluable asset, and this is a good program. This is something that's going to both expand our academic programming, but also expand the college and career readiness of our students. And this is something that we're really, really enthusiastic about. The work towards the environmental pathway and also the career pathways in general, also I'd be remiss to say, was strongly informed by a lot of the interviews that we conducted with both students and with families. A lot of interest in careers. What happens after I graduate from Pioneer? And this is a way for students to get both academic experience, take important and innovative classes in a specific area, but also to get some field experience in the working world. And that's a good opportunity. And one that I think is going to really benefit our students and benefit our programming here. So again, I'd also be remiss in saying, we did a lot of interviews, again, focusing on what students here want. And a big focus of this also was, something I mentioned earlier was with 8th grade retention. And we really delved into that process. I'll leave it at this. It's still a work work that we're paying close attention to, and there's going to be some follow-up interviews and follow-up phone calls with both 8th grade students and families to help them, to again continue selling them on the good things that we're doing here. And I think one big selling point for us is going to be, again, these innovation pathways. This is going to be a unique experience. We're, I believe, going to be the first school in Franklin County to offer this particular program, and we're working hard to partner with both local employers and also Greenfield Community College on offering a world-class experience for our students with this. So we're really excited about that. So those are the two areas of focus for the remainder of this year, and obviously a lot more work to be done after that.
All right. I like the wording in the slides better than what's on my paper. So, and I want to make sure I'm doing them in the same order. I really enjoyed the process, and one of the things that I enjoyed the most was actually my interviews with the students. They were very insightful, and so one of the goals is to kind of find ways for two-way communication, and that's something that even as a teacher you can give information, and how do we get information, and how can we foster those opportunities. And so finding ways to seek feedback from not just community members, faculty members, families, but also from our students, and having those conversations with the students that I met with was fantastic. And I really am looking forward to finding ways that I can do that at our school. And I think to do that on a regular basis would be really important. I also, one of the things that was mentioned earlier was the response to intervention, finding ways that are systematically ways to look at data and look at ways that we're looking at students and the interventions that we're using and how often we look at those. I think we need to improve that. And so creating a model, a response to intervention model, I think is going to be something that we need to start this year to look at for the future. So it's a long-term project, but it's also a short-term goal. And then another one that I think is really important, that they're to reestablish the school culture committee that had been part of our school and was one of the reasons that kind of sold me on Northfield was the adult norms that the adults have, but the culture that they have created. And I want to make sure that I can continue that and develop it even more. And part of that was through the school culture committee that they had already in place that is not currently there. So I want to reestablish that so that we can continue to develop a positive, safe, and equitable culture for both students and our staff. At this time, we would welcome any questions about our entry plan process.
You have some questions?
Well, thank you for this. As I said a couple of months ago, I'm so glad to see this. One of the things that I have been really trying to press upon is that the school committee's goal is, well, I'll read it right from MASC. Effective school boards commit to a vision of high expectations for student achievement and quality instruction and define clear goals towards that vision. And as we talk about the school committee vision, I really think we should partner with you. I don't think we should be working in silos. I guess that Rain and Lex must have talked about the cell phone policy that I heard all about yesterday. And I can't tell you how glad I was to meet with these fine young stars, I'm going to call you. And I think you have such bright futures before you. But we as a school committee really need to partner with the students and the staff. And we need to have goals. And we need to look at data. And that's what I have been trying to stress for almost 3 years. And I hope we can start getting the data and work together. I have been doing a lot of research these past couple of weeks on the role of a school committee. And I think we're finally going to get there. But I hope that you're going to come to the school committee, give us the data about the MCAS scores, whatever student achievement scores. And one last thing about the environmental justice. I was at a state conference, and I can't tell you how much the governor and we had a climate change guru was the speaker, and there are going to be so many climate jobs in the future. And I think that's what we should have as one of our goals too, because I think we need to prepare our students for the future. Our future is changing so much with climate change. So I want to thank you. This must have been a lot of work. And I can't wait to see the outcomes of what you've done here and your goals. So I look forward to hearing more from you.
I just wanted to take a second and thank Superintendent Kinsella for asking us to go through this process together. And with her guidance and her leadership, we were able to work together and get this done. And I mean, as Chrissy said at the beginning, some parts of this were really quite a lot of fun. And we learned a lot about the district. And I think the best part was just meeting the students, the staff, the community, and having conversations and really getting to know people a little bit more than we did, say, 6 months ago. So I certainly thank the superintendent and the rest of the administrative team for all the work that we put in. It was really a pleasure to be a part of such an important project.
Nice. So I'd just like to say I really appreciate the work that you put into this. It was clear that there was a lot of work, and what really came through was it was a very collaborative process. That the four of you worked well together. You got to know each other, shared information about the district, and I really liked reading about shared beliefs, and I think that creates a more cohesive team, and it helps families know what the expectations are going to be as their students move through the different levels of education as they transition from elementary into middle and high school. They know what to expect, and I really appreciate that came through. Just reading your report, it was a pleasure to read. So, and I saw some really wonderful themes that we can work together on, and look forward to that.
I'm going to make just one quick comment. So we looked at sample entry plans and then entry plan reports on findings to figure out what we thought would work for us and da-da-da. I fully suspect that new administrators in other districts, we'll put this up on our website. I fully expect that folks in other districts will use the work that you did and the way you organized it and your careful and detailed, thorough documentation as models for them. So you've advanced the work of your colleagues in other local districts. Thank you. And please feel free to go home. Right, Taffy?
Yeah,
go home.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate it. All right. So that was exciting. So on to our next item. Basketball games, elimination of student ticket fees. Is this,
It doesn't like me to want to eliminate a fee, but here we are. There had been some good input and feedback we received from the community about student fees for attending basketball games, and in some of the other sports like volleyball, there aren't fees charged, and just thinking about it, kind of an equity issue, right? In student participation in all aspects of the school community, to consider eliminating those fees, especially given that there wouldn't be really a large financial impact. So, and hopefully allow for greater participation among students in sporting events. So that's really the impetus behind it, and why I would like the school committee to consider eliminating those fees. Importantly, if the school committee does in fact approve eliminating the fees, we would then also send that to the commissioner for final approval to change the policy surrounding fees. Any questions?
This is the students.
Correct. Yep. They're going to charge you,
So
Michelle.
I'll repeat that question just for the, so it would be only for students in the district, so it would include elementary and PVRS students, and then, but adults would still need to pay an entry fee.
And students from other districts.
Yep. And students from other districts.
Regular season. Yep.
So I would like to move the motion. However, I would like to make a amendment and a change to it. There are students that have IOUs that have shown up to games and they don't have the cash on them, and that has been tallied. And so students who have a balance, I'm actually requesting that gets removed when we remove these fees. And so my motion would be to eliminate the admission of fees for PVRSD students at basketball games and remove any balances hosted by PVRS, except when we are required to charge admission for MIAA or other sanctioned bodies.
I have a question. What's the tally? What's the total?
I don't know the tally, but students are being approached and being asked and reminded in front of other students that they owe money.
Sure. The method may not be appropriate, but I'm
Correct,
thinking
yeah.
about the students
So-
who perhaps the students who paid versus the students who didn't have to pay. But maybe the delivery and approach needs to change.
So I think also what was confusing with this is if you were a winter athlete, you didn't have to pay. So there was these little nuances that happened. So groups of students would show up to a basketball game, and if you played basketball
but for the girls' team or not the boys' team, you didn't have to pay, but you had to pay. So students didn't always know whether they were a paying student or a non-paying student. And so I don't think the balances are much.
Sure. Just
But
curious.
But you're right. The method wasn't necessarily the right way, but also how it was being rolled out was also inequitable, and it was just kind of a mess. So there are other, some other local schools around us that don't charge their students, but charge visiting students. And so we would kind of be in alignment with some of our neighboring districts.
If the committee votes yes on this, if there was a basketball game tomorrow night, does that mean tomorrow night?
Well, that's
no fee?
Help me think this through, Jordan. So we need, under the special legislation of 2018, we need the commissioner's approval to change any user fees. And we're in the midst of the basketball season. So if you vote, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to stop charging the fees right away? I don't know.
I do know that there has been the sports boosters have volunteered that if we were to vote this down, the sports boosters would volunteer to pay for all student admissions in the event we voted it down. So I don't know if we voted yes, and then in the event the commissioner didn't approve, we could go.
I believe the commissioner will approve. It's a question of timing.
Timing. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I think that's a great solution. We have whoever's at the door count the number of PVRSD student admissions, and we could, if the commissioner voted it down, we would go hat in hand to the sports boosters and say, you make us whole, but we'll stop charging as of today. I mean, if it voted, by tomorrow we wouldn't charge anymore. And then we would have to get in the good graces of the sports boosters.
And just say, hey, could you pay $30?
That would be great if we could do it tomorrow.
That would be acceptable.
Yeah, right.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. That passes unanimously. Great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we're at the.
Yes.
Okay, we've had so many wonderful visitors tonight. Paul Mills, if you'd like to join us up at the table there. Tonight, we wanted, the school committee has the opportunity to hear a little bit more about the final recommendation. Paul's going to walk you through some slides, just recapping the process and highlights. You have a memo in front of you that also recaps the process, the timeline, the outreach, what the request in front of you is and what it is not, and what some possible next steps are. So I will be handing over first to Paul. We'll look at Paul's slides that are up on the screen. Again, the final report, oh my gosh, the final report you have in paper with you tonight. The final report I put up onto the website this afternoon. They'll have a district update tomorrow, but we'll also send it out to a district all. We'll send it out to the towns. Paul, if you will walk us through the slides, and then Jordan will talk about the implications of the memo and the motion.
Patricia, do you mind surrendering the airtime? I'll go ahead and advance slides.
No, you want me to hand it to you?
Sure.
Okay, I'm off.
Am I up? Looks like it. Here we go. Okay, great to be in front of you again, and Happy New Year. It's been a couple weeks since we were last together. Just as a quick recap, on December 14th, we presented the recommendations from Canon Design to PVRSD for facility and facility use actions to take over the next 6 years. What today we're presenting the same to you and giving a quick recap and giving you a quick overview of the document that's in front of you and presenting this for acceptance and with direction to staff to proceed with some of the recommendations specifically related to the funding grants application with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So I have two parts here. I'm going to walk you through the report that's in front of you in terms of each section and then give you a quick recap before we turn it over. So we've got the contents here, and I'm going to walk through each section in turn, starting with the executive summary. It's a one-pager that if someone only has time to read one page, this gives you the whole picture about what's being recommended, right? Kind of walks you through the purpose, process, options, and recommendations put forward in the facility master plan. So the section is about purpose, and it speaks to the impetus behind this work, what led to it, what it was about, and what it aspires to achieve, specifically addressing some challenges that PVRSD faces. It's particularly as it relates to the facilities. The next section 3 is about the process that we went through and describes the steps that we took. You know, it's foundational in nature, where we started off establishing the guiding principles to support the goals of the FMP, overlaid with a thorough study of data, looking at the physical condition, the functional adequacy of your facilities as it relates to your educational goals, as well as looking at the enrollment projections and demographics of your communities. The next step really went into exploring options. We worked with a planning committee that had students, some present company included, as well as families and staff members, administrators from all schools, and town representation, a composite committee representing the interests of all areas of PVRSD. We explored various options and vetted those through the community, at which point we reconvened after a survey with over 250 responses and came to some recommendations that I presented to you in December. All of this is outlined in the process section. Those options are recapped in section 4. We explored 4 different options, recommending option 3. We also included in this section what I presented last month in terms of the results of the survey, disaggregated by representation from different schools. And finally, our recommendations are outlined in more detail than what I presented last month, but it goes through the various elements that I'm going to walk you through here just shortly, in a timeline for those. And then finally, there's an appendix that acknowledges the participation of the amazing human beings that contributed towards this work. So quickly, a recap of what we're recommending. We have these big themes that these are organized under, and they all fall into a timeline, which is outlined in the report. First and foremost and central to our recommendations is what we titled capital O, capital C, One Campus. The recommendation is for unifying pre-K through 12, one educational hub here on this campus with new and refreshed modernized buildings, both in terms of renovations and expansions for new facilities that can be manifested in a number of ways. We have 2 concepts that are outlined here in visual format to show how additions and renovations could accommodate this outcome, both in terms of a concept where the elementary students would be in a new addition, or the opposite, that your secondary students would be in a new addition and the others would be in the main renovated campus. Next, an interim grade recommendation or configuration is, or consideration of one is recommended, that continued study and exploratory, because of the long timelines and partnership with the MSBA and large dollar values associated with the one campus, that in the interim we can take steps towards that operationally, educationally, and structurally, looking at perhaps an early education center here at the PVRSD campus, which would mean pre-K or perhaps even pre-K through K would attend school here outside of the elementary schools in a concentrated program where more resources could be put together towards it, and actually create an opportunity for career pathways, CTE opportunities for your high school students who might have interest in going into education. There would be a learning laboratory right here on campus. Or perhaps even 6th grade to merge towards the one campus model a little bit sooner in the process, but at this point, that would require a lot more study, outreach, engagement with your communities to discuss the ramifications of that, And the timelines for that, we have a number of years before the actual one campus project could be implemented. Next, prioritize renovations is about maintaining what you've got. Continuing doing the great work that your staff is doing to prioritize those highest needs and taking care of them. Your towns have to financially fund these, and no one likes surprises, but we've been putting out fires for a number of years, and very well. But we do know from the facility studies that these buildings are aging, and there are a lot of building systems that will be expiring within the near term. And what we want to do is get towards a new refreshed campus and then make investment in one site with the partnership of the state that will pay probably around half of the costs of facilities, on top of those incentives that my partner Mary Delai shared with you that are available through the federal government and other utility incentives that get into the space of energy efficiency and sustainability that not only will help you on the first time costs, but also year in, year out, forevermore. Your operational costs will be lower, so you can reinvest those dollars into program and teachers. And sustainable investments really is an extension of what I was just talking about, is making sure that we look at the long run. If we're going to be spending money on capital and buildings, that we do so in alignment with the state's goals of carbon neutrality. And there are a lot of incentives in place to do so. This isn't just a money and dollars and cents thing. This really is about education and about students. No one has a larger stake in this than them, and their voice is loud and clear in our conversations and in the survey information that this is a priority to be taken care of. And there is a wonderful book authored by John Lepore from your community entitled Pioneering Stewardship Plan. It's in its 3rd edition, and it spells out a lot of recommendations relative to curriculum development and how to enhance the student experience through the wonderful environments that you have around your schools, and these are highly recommended. And finally, reimagining the town buildings that you have, merging towards a single site. Pre-K through 12 means that the 2 existing elementary schools are assets that can be used for different and higher and better use within the communities of Bernardston and Northfield. This is at the longer end of the time frame, but towards the end, before it all happens, we want to contemplate what those buildings want to be, right? Whether they're there for senior care, whether they're as educational training centers, workforce development, partnering with local industry, or it could become housing for senior citizens or for public or for teachers or for public servants. Really, the limits really are only by our own imaginations, but having engagement with the towns and with communities about what the relative needs are at that time or what we're recommending. So just to recap it all, at full implementation of the plan, we're talking about is a united pre-K through 12 experience and an academic community hub right here on this campus, looking at new and renovated buildings that are energy efficient, that forevermore will allow you to reinvest your operational dollars into the classroom where it belongs, and enhance quality of educational programs. That's really the bottom line, what the recommendation is about. And just as a salvo note, if you're feeling any pressure about making a decision today, the decision to adopt and accept this plan of action and give direction to staff does not paint you into a corner. This isn't a final decision about how all these projects get manifested. It gets the ball rolling. As Mary mentioned to you last time, we have a timeline of about 6 years to implement a project. That's more than a generation of someone at PVRS, right? We're talking about a long time frame that needs to get started at some point and won't get done any faster than we can get the ball rolling. The window for the statement of interest process with the MSBA starts this month and goes through April. So time is now to move forward with this. So the timing is fantastic for the board to take action. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jordan to put forward the memo for you.
And then before Jordan begins, I'm going to do a little bragging on his behalf. Paul, when we were meeting this afternoon, and I shared the memo with you, would you like to share what you...
Oh, absolutely. And it goes what Patricia just mentioned a moment ago, that you guys are blazing trails for your peer districts around. And this memo here, I'm actually saving in my files to be able to share with other districts as the model for how to take a facility modernization plan and give direction to school committees that you only see this once in a blue moon, if ever. And it's kind of, okay, great. What do I do with it now? I mean, this is the how-to. So anyway, kudos to your team.
Good, thank you. Yeah, it is a team effort. Patricia and I spent a lot of time revising this in different iterations, only because it's a ton of information, right? This is a significant part of many people's time for, really a year now, right? Going through the appropriate process in terms of procurement to actually select a vendor, develop the request for qualifications and go through that process. And this process, it seems like yesterday, but it's been a long process, right? Half a year process of regular contact, both with Canon and huge amounts of contact with the community, which is, been super enriching and beneficial. And so, yeah, we're at a really important point of the process, but as Paul pointed out, certainly not the end and not a point where we're making decisions or financial commitments that we can't back away from as we get more information. And so that's really what I'm thinking about, right? We spent a lot of money, we spent a lot of time, and we got some strong recommendations from the district planning committee, right? Who had great membership, including Lex, and other people in this room who had a preference for option 3, right? So that's where we got in this 6-month-long process. And so really the next step of accepting the recommendations isn't even actually approving an SOI, right? That's a next intermediate step. But what it's saying is, yes, moving towards that. And I think I wanted to also frame further what the SOI really means, right? Moving forward with the SOI process, to me, it does two things. It provides us a lot better information of financially, right, if we're selected in and continue with the process. If the state's interested in becoming our partner in this, it gives us a lot better idea of what this really would cost, right? Because as Paul mentions, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 60%. Entering into that process allows us to know that. In my mind, to some extent, it might be silly to just stop without actually knowing what the state would support if we wanted to do this, right? So that to me is one aspect, but I think also it supports a goal of our budget process, right? As part of the budget process, we talked about wanting to start to hone in on seeing how to support the recommended option of this facility master plan. And to do so, we really need to know if we're going to have a partner in the state, right? If we don't have a partner in the state, to be direct, we don't really have a way forward, right? Our communities aren't going to support 100% of a new project, but there's a potential that our communities could support a fraction along with maybe the federal government. But the only way to know is to move forward with the recommendation and then, the SOI process. And at that point, we won't have committed anything more than potentially the amount of money we would pay to a consultant to help us ensure that we or have a better chance at being selected into the next step of the SOI process. So I just kind of wanted to frame what the decision is here. We're not making a decision to spend $100 million tonight because we don't have the authority to do that, right? So, and we're going to continue to partner with the towns, have open discussion throughout this process, because ultimately, regardless of what the state supports, we're going to have to be extremely transparent and good partners with our towns and give them a very clear idea of what this really would cost. But the next step is seeing how much the state will pick up, because if the number's 0, process is pretty much over. But I think we're going to do a really good job and maybe have a substantial part where the state would be willing to contribute, and then I think we can see what we would like to do moving forward. So hopefully that helps in framing where we're at, and then obviously questions or if someone wants to advance the motion, but happy to answer questions as well.
Jordan, I think it's very clearly laid out, and I understand that we are not committing to going through the entire process tonight, but getting in line for it should we decide on that? So I'd like to move to approve Canon Design's recommended option number 3 to consolidate PK through 12 grades at the PVRS campus.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or questions? Yeah, you did a great job of laying things out, and thank you, Paul, for providing the information and our final report.
I will say in my professional career, this might be the first time I've had a no discussion acceptance of a plan, but I'll take it as a compliment that we've answered all questions and the document stands for itself. But anyway, it's been a pleasure working with you and your team. I really, really enjoy this area of the country. I live just 30 minutes north of here a good chunk of the year up in Walpole, New Hampshire. And it's really been a pleasure working with you and look forward to seeing all the great things that come out of this work.
Great. So we ready to take a vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Wow.
2, 3, 4, 5. And any opposed? 2. Okay. And that motion passes.
Oh, they don't, yeah. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul.
Thank you.
Have a safe drive home.
All right. So next item on the agenda is
See you later, goodbye.
some school committee governance. So, Michelle, this has been long awaited. We started this process at the school committee retreat last summer, and would like to move forward with identifying a couple of goals, and I'd like to hear individuals' thoughts on, if anyone has thoughts about the themes of what we discussed last summer, as well as any additional thoughts on our identity as a district, what our values are, what are the things that we value the most, what are we the most proud of, and what do we feel needs work.
Well, it's a part of our goals is, as I've said it before, continuous improvement in student achievement. And I don't know how to frame that as a goal. I have, obviously highlighted a lot of things in here from MASC on what the school committee's roles are and how to goal set. Of course, they tell you to ask for help from MASC. But when we didn't frame any of this in SMART goals, and we should have been looking at this and having this in front of us. I am surprised Tracy Novak didn't steer us towards the SMART goals. So now I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to set the SMART goals in order for us, to follow these goals and follow our progress on them? We're supposed to monitor our progress on goal setting. So if anyone has any ideas, just throw them up. So
I think we need to start by identifying priorities, so student achievement, and measuring student achievement and continuing to improve on that is one foundational kind of, or aspirational, and then we can, we also need to consider what's within our purview, in terms of student achievement, we need to ask the administration to provide us with regular reports on the assessment data. And then it's our job to look at those trends and, listen to those trends and hear them and continue to include those in our work.
So while the student achievements are measurable, how do we make it a measurable goal for the school committee? That's what I'm trying to frame.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time researching other school districts and their goals. And so SMART goals are just how you write your goal, right? And so when I was listening to the presentation with the entry plan today, for me, I picked out a goal that I thought we could go along with, which is curriculum. Looking at curriculum and how that enhances student achievement. It's one of the goals that our administrators are doing, and I think our role as school committee is to support administration in their development of curriculum and how that the measurable is the student achievements, and we can do that. I think to sit here tonight and actually draft out a SMART goal is not going to be the best use of our time.
I agree.
I think, as I was looking at the notes from the retreat, again, I wasn't there. I was looking at themes. So I would like to, the 3 goals that I had that I thought of, one was the curriculum. This is in no particular order. Curriculum and student achievement. The second would be communication with how we communicate with our town officials as a school committee and as administration. And then my pet project is I would like to do a goal with our with our own school committee governance and looking at how we as a school committee have our own handbook and how we run our calendar, which is next on the agenda.
Yep.
So previous to our meeting, I spent a lot of time thinking about potential goals. Those are the 3 that I'm proposing. I would love to hear other people's goals, what they would think. But then those goals would have to be crafted into SMART goals. So I don't mind, myself, for my own 3 that I would present, I can take some time and create a SMART goal with measurable, actionable, but that is not something I'm prepared to do tonight and present.
Should we have a little ad hoc committee get together to do this, if anyone?
For SMART goals, I don't think so necessarily. No, I think that if other people have other goals, that let's rewind a bunch. For those non-educators,
excuse me,
does anyone know what a SMART goal is?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have SMART goals.
We do it.
Okay, it's not
Yes.
just educators.
Yeah,
okay.
we're doing that.
Yes.
We do it in
business
we do it.
even.
Okay, all right. It was so accustomed with educator evaluation that
We talk about it all the time.
I know SMART goals. So, okay, great.
Yeah, no, it's been in the
Never mind.
hospital. Around
Okay.
Yeah,
Because all of a sudden-
everyone's starting to do them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because I could rehearse it,
Yeah.
at night.
I always remember. I always forget what one of the things, but it's
Yeah. And
one
it's
of the
it's just a way to make sure that, anyways.
Well, I love communication, so I agree with that. The curriculum, though, I think is kind of broad. Should we narrow it down a little bit? Like, I don't know, to just do a whole curriculum is like,
Well, I think if you identify the goal is broad, but the actions and the evidence.
like math and.
Correct, again, this takes a lot of time to construct goals that you could get specific.
Because I think if you're looking at something like a macro, like if you're trying if we're trying to measure student achievement, I think we're trying to look at the curriculum as a whole, see what is going on as a whole, and then kind of narrow it down from there. Is that kind of what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, the whole curriculum is like
right.
a lot. And we're talking curriculum from kindergarten to 12. So that to me is like a lot.
Yeah, we could narrow it.
You know, okay.
Well, and then, but also to remember with curriculum, we're not responsible for
Right.
this, directing the curriculum.
right.
We
But
have a curriculum coordinator or
But I
director
think it's
of
just a
teacher
way to
learning.
measure, just using as a measurable tool to measure achievement, right?
Yeah.
Are you okay? I'm looking at Kate's, in the report on page 5. The first priority implication that Kate has there is develop a fully aligned curriculum across all content areas and all grade levels, draft a multi-year plan for curriculum review. Speaking in my self-interest, working with my team, it would be so wonderful if the school committee supported that. So for instance, for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
it would be great if we had a simple document that our community could understand that said, in science, beginning in pre-K,
Yeah.
here's the
That's what I'm-
curriculum.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Break it down.
math, this is what we use. And I think were we to try to produce that document today, there would be some embarrassing holes
Oh, yeah.
in what we do for science and social studies. I mean, so I'm just, gosh, if the school committee took that on as a goal and, you know.
Right.
I don't know, somehow
What role would the school
supporting,
committee have with that?
making sure that the administrative team, Kate leading it, first step would be I'm making this up as I talk, although I've been thinking about it forever. A survey of what is and is not in
Right.
place with curriculum.
Right.
And then keep working with Kate. She has identified elementary math, absolutely. We've
Yeah,
got to get
that's
that
what I
going.
was
She's
looking
got,
at.
she's put out a survey saying who wants to be involved. We're working on how this is going to go the next few months. So first step, require us to do a map and then talk with you about a plan for how we think we would tackle it, and then you keep us on our toes. I don't know, does that?
No, and,
I
I think there's another level of adding funding to it, making sure our budget is also, so when we draft the goal, it would be to support administration in their, in the development of the curriculum by supporting the budgetary allotments and blah, 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 blah.
Don't we have 600,000?
And so then teaching and learning has got a really big role,
Right.
Right.
and continually checking in,
Right.
providing guidance, asking,
And
The M piece I'm worried about with that one.
what's that?
Measure,
When you say support something, it's hard to measure.
I think it's measurable.
Yeah,
Here's
it
to
is
me
too.
how it's measurable. Do we get you a map of
Yeah.
what exists in the district?
do we have the map? Do we,
Is there
are
a
we
plan
seeing?
for, look, we think we
Yeah.
could do, select elementary math this spring. There's a concept called program review. And so in a super high functioning district, there's always a few curriculum areas under review, but they're at different stages of the review, and review sometimes takes 2 years.
Yeah.
So you might have secondary social studies is in the year 1 process, but simultaneously, elementary ELA is in year 1. Eventually, even though we're small, eventually we got to get to that. So it's like when you have major equipment, you've got an expected life cycle and replacement cycle.
Yeah.
Curriculum, we should have an ongoing, it's just expected. Every curriculum I'm making, maybe every 5 years goes into review. That's it. And that way you can budget for it. We can think way out in advance. So I think that might be how it could be measurable.
And I want to piggyback on the governance is definitely something that has been in the back in my mind as well throughout this year. Creating the yearly calendar was an important step in that. We have a draft for a handbook, and I'd like to bring that to completion. And then also working on a plan for the agendas and for subcommittee meetings, as well as in addition to the our full committee meetings. That's something I know we need to hone in on. That would help our function.
You're going to present something with a calendar. I would like to get us back to not so much business at both meetings, talking about budget. I mean, I'd like for us to really start talking about more that's going on with curriculum in school and all. You know, I thought that we had talked about one meeting would be a business meeting, and the next meeting would be more, I'll throw out curriculum, for example. Because we have been doing a lot of business.
It's been a lot happening.
Talking about these things.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
But
And not
these-
talking about, you
but-
know, what really the crux is.
But how can you not do the business parts? That's
what we're, yeah.
Well, you
what we're
do it
meant to
one
do.
meeting,
Yeah,
and then
but
the next
keep-
meeting, something else.
right, but all right, here we are. It's the second meeting of the month.
Right.
And
Right.
we can't sit for more than 2 hours. No, not that, this is extremely important.
It is extremely
So
important.
I think we have
so-
to have maybe dedicated times for various
Yeah,
parts
that's what I'm
of what we decide our goals are for accomplishing them.
Mhm.
And maybe not all in the same meeting,
Right.
but spread out over the month. Here's what we're doing about governance, organization, and how we time what we need to do. And another time here is what we have as far as our curriculum goal at this point, or our achievement goal for our students, and that goes on the calendar.
So I'll commit to bring a SMART goal about school committee governance to the next meeting, and have a SMART goal ready to go and present. I don't know if other people want to draft other goals.
I'll draft communication.
A communication goal, yeah. And other people don't have to like assign, but
I tell you what I'd like to do, maybe not right away, but people who've been in education may know this thing called a concept map, you know? Where you can take a lot of what is in the notes from this retreat we had, and we can show how the things maybe that we don't think we're working on, by focusing on these 3 things, really have implications for and are related to those main goals as well. So we don't feel like we've left it behind. It's still in our minds. And once you have these 3 goals, whatever, I will try to work on that part if you'd like.
That sounds like a great
Great.
concept. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Great. What's it called? Concept?
A concept map.
Okay.
Okay. And I will draft a SMART goal around curriculum for our next meeting.
I just want to ask the question for closing that use themes from the promise to help set 2 or 3 goals for the remainder of the year. Does that mean draft and review and then vote and then do those things by the end of the year? Or by the end of the year, we will have 2 or 3 goals?
So that these are the goals we'll be working on for the remainder of the year. I don't think that it's realistic to think that we would complete all of these goals. And I think, right. So creating a goal that we're going to begin, these are the goals that we're going to be focused on for the remainder of the year, and then review and either continue, revise, we can reassess what our goals are at our retreat this summer. Yes.
We may want to consider this in terms of like pillars or call it whatever, like our overarching like student achievement. I'm just throwing things out here. Curriculum, student safety, communication. Those will always be our overarching goals, but within that we will have mini goals. Some will achieve really quickly. Some will take time. Some will take 1 year, 2 months, 4 years, so on and so forth. But we really should structure it with overarching themes that never change.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Have it on the calendar, yeah.
Okay.
There was an additional conversation with Rain and Lex. We met thinking, to talk about their presentation and the meeting that happened. Thank you, Michelle and Melissa and Jordan and Matt Sullivan for meeting with the students. The student intern at MASC created a student representative to school committee's handbook. Rain has read the whole thing. And we talked about the idea of maybe providing support over the next year for our student representatives to revise whatever portions necessary so that for them, it became a pioneer-specific handbook. So for the student representatives to school committee in our district, you could hand them something.
Love that.
And they could hand down to the next students. So that, it seems that might be a student, is that a school committee governance?
Yeah, that's what,
okay.
yeah. Yep.
Okay. Did I say that out of turn, Melissa? I hope not.
Nope.
No, okay.
That was the bridge to the next topic.
Sorry. Sorry.
Excellent. Great. So more to come. I guess we will be discussing more on goals at our next meeting. So calendar of yearly tasks, votes and events. So there's a draft calendar in your hand packet. Yes.
I noticed, what I didn't see on here
Mhm.
just quickly was approving the private schools in the district.
Great.
Oh, thank you.
Where?
Say that again. We have to approve the private schools? It's an
Annual
Oh,
thing.
yeah?
It's
Oh,
annual?
or the
No, I know.
school.
Periodic, whatever. I know
When
it's
they-
come up pretty
Okay,
regularly.
we'll look it up.
So I just
Yeah, there is a role for the school committee, actually, to take a look at private schools within its boundaries and approve them.
Great. Okay. Any other items on the school calendar, that we should be addressing?
Yeah, this is a first pass.
Yes.
Yeah,
First
not-
pass.
Yeah, so
This should not be
I'm not
considered ready for
no,
prime
this is
time.
yeah, this
Yeah. This is kind of like, this is moving forward. We're looking, preparing for,
so
and that we have a rolling, like we know we're going to be talking about X, Y, or Z in a particular month. Yeah.
so this started kind of like Michelle has her goals as her little niche that she has. Mine is the school governance. So last spring, Raina and myself volunteered to work with Patricia on setting up some school committee governance, looking at the handbook, looking at the calendar. This is just a draft of, hey, this is what we can depend on, looking at making sure that the pillars that we value for our school district are covered throughout the year. Our work ended, took a pause, but I would like to actually reconvene if people are interested in the school committee governance working group again, to continue to work on this, the calendar, to actually finally create a school committee member handbook, and also along with this the student handbook. So I don't know whether other people are interested in that work. But I would like to start that again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, we can organize a time.
Yeah.
To work to get together and.
I can't remember. What did we decide on school improvement plans? Were we going to get any this year?
The decision was that we were pausing until the entry plans were done.
Okay.
Chrissy Schreiber, I gave permission for her to go ahead and restart her school council. There is actually, in terms of tasks school committee needs to do, one of them is you need to approve a process for selecting members of, I'm getting arcane, but it's what the law says, a process for selecting school council members. So in general, the agreement was let them get through this, and then Matt starts working on his school council. I'm going to, even though Cindy was already in place, I'm asking her now get started on her school council. The school councils then draft the school improvement plans.
So what's the school culture committee?
That's a committee that Megan Damaris ran for multiple years at Northfield Elementary School. They, what is his name? Chip Gaines? Does this ring a bell? Chip Goines?
Ainsworth?
No, not that Chip.
That's the recorder.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Another
Yeah,
Chip.
that's incredible.
Chip Wood, thank you. That was, I wasn't here. Super interesting committee that did a lot of reading, and I think he might have even come. They developed these adult agreements, adult norms for how they would interact with each other. And I'll tell you, Northfield Elementary School pulls those norms out before conversations, and they talk about which ones they're going to focus on. And after conversations, they talk about which ones, they were able to uphold and which ones were difficult. They worked very hard under Megan's leadership to reconsider what it means to be in professional relationship. And so Chrissy would like to get that restarted.
It's interesting.
Thank you. My apologies, Renee, if I didn't.
All right. So I think are there any other items that off the top of, or for discussion that people would like to add to the calendar? All right. So we will take another, the governance working group will take another stab at it and refine it, and we will keep that moving forward.
Great.
All right. Great. So personnel update.
All right, let's take a look at what we have. I was on the weekly superintendent's call, and a superintendent asked in a kind of plaintive voice, "Does anyone else have open positions?" Everyone said, "Yes, we do have open positions." We have hired some instructional assistants. We have Tom Moore, custodian in this building, will be moving to the day shift. Tom has spent a number of years on the second shift. And once we hire another custodian, Cliff Page has left the district, Tom will be able to work during the day. So kudos to him. We've got Taffy, in this conversation about instructional assistants, and I think I've mentioned before, about a year ago when we looked at it, our rate in this district of hiring special education one-to-ones was 2.5 times the state average. And comparing it to some other local districts, while it wasn't 2.5 times the rate in those districts, it was still significantly above those districts. So that's the context in which Nancy is raising some really important questions. We still have some instructional assistant positions open, and we may need to hire another instructional assistant or two for new roles in the coming months, depending upon what happens with students. So I'm just flagging that for you.
I missed last meeting, but this is a really short list compared to, so a lot of work had been done to fill some roles, it looks like. I know at least last time it was a full page of.
Was it the full?
It was close. It was bigger than this. It was bigger.
Yeah.
It just, I looked at it and I was like,
We're trying.
my gosh.
I had the same reaction, Jen. It was.
Well, I love hearing that.
see.
Yeah, December wasn't so long. We hired in December, we hired the administrative assistant replacement who does half there, half in guidance. We hired Esther Gonzalez as the .6 Spanish teacher. There was another instructional assistant hired. It may have been 2 months ago that we were looking kind of long. Yeah, we advertised on Craigslist for custodians. Yeah, you know, you have said, you have brought up, you know, what, and some teachers emailed me saying, have you thought? So we put some non-teacher, a position or two up on Craigslist. We thought about Indeed, but when you go to Indeed, it crawls through other websites. Our positions come up. So there's no need for us to pay for that, but there is another place. I have asked Jordan to re-explore the online postings on the Recorder. They're pretty expensive, but I think it's worth trying for a month to see if it, you know, if we pay extra, push us up in the algorithm. So we are very aware that for some of our roles, like instructional assistant roles and custodians, those folks aren't going on School Spring.
No.
Not necessarily, right? They're looking on other job sites. So we're trying to be creative.
When you repost the role, it pops up at the beginning of the that.
We do that.
Okay, great.
Yep, yep. You have to take the old, yep, thank you.
New role.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, new posting. Exactly. All right, so our upcoming meetings, January 29th, Policy Subcommittee. I won't list all the subcommittees. Budget hearing number 2 will be happening on the, is that the 30th, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Yep,
it should be 30.
The 30th, at 6 p.m.
There's a lot of portions
Depends on
to
the
this one.
questions, yeah.
Yeah, it depends.
I think it's scheduled for 2 hours. I
Doubt it will be 2
don't think it
hours.
will last that long.
Especially since the cherry sheets came out, it's not like there needs to be a ton of reworking. You know, there wasn't a horrifying.
Is that something you want me to take notes for?
Michelle,
I
what do you
don't think you
I don't
have.
think so.
I don't think,
so.
have you in the past?
I have in the past.
At the,
Oh.
have you done the final one? That's separate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right,
So,
I will
yeah.
not be there. That's good, because I have a prior commitment, and I was hoping I
Yeah.
could get out in time to go to it. So
Yeah.
that's good.
February 8th at 6 p.m. will be the public hearing, and that'll be that's the
That's
the big bang.
Oh, they're all important.
And then the
I'm on
15th will be,
I won't be
February 15th will be our
You want to
next
tune in?
I
business meeting.
the next week. Oh, I'll talk to you.
Okay, yeah, well, all right. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I just share one thing?
Oh, yes.
I was going to do other business side, but Tyler had asked me. He is doing a trivia event on behalf of the senior class on February 10th.
Ooh.
And so I'm going to be putting in a team. I'm awful at trivia, but I am. So anyways, February 10th, it's a Saturday evening. It's a fundraiser for the senior class. I have the little advertisement here. So if anyone is interested, they want to take a picture of it. Hugh Sajowski is organizing it. Again, Tyler is going to be the MC. He's the trivia master. He's worked.
I'll put that in the district update. I'll have Hugh send me a.
Yeah. So
Will it be here?
it's going to be here. It's going to be here in the cafeteria. And so it says bring your own food and drink.
I might have
Make
something else.
teams of 2 to 6. Sign-ups are at 4. It begins at 4:30 p.m. So
I might
yeah, it's
know
not too late. And it's titled Valentine's and First Down Lines.
Oh, that's really unfortunate.
So
First down line.
First down line.
First down line. It's like a play on football. I'm going to be awful at trivia, but I'm going to do this. It's going to be fun. So, yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to share that
Thank you.
event on behalf of the seniors.
All right. And, all right.
Oh, I'll make a
Motion-
motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All right. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.